As British Columbians continue to grapple with the implications of the BC Supreme Court granting Aboriginal title over privately owned land and part of Richmond, and with Kamloops and Sun Peaks potentially being next, private property rights and economic stability in the province continue to be under threat. Some mainstream media says, don't worry, property owners will be just fine. And the BC NDP wants you to believe they're the best party to defend property rights.
We are moving quickly, expediting permit times, creating jobs for British Columbia, creating stability. We can't afford the chaos of abandoning that work, the loss of employment that the Conservatives would bring by ending these conversations. But we do have to make sure our laws reflect the intentions and bright lines that we have. Protect private property. This is government's job, not the courts, and we'll make sure that's the case.
But is that actually true? Can British Columbians trust the NDP to get us out of this mess, or are they a big reason we're in this mess to begin with? And are EB's reluctantly proposed amendments to BC's Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, DRIPA, the UN-inspired framework linked to the rise in reconciliation overreach in the province, good enough?
Government's responsibility, not the courts, to work with First Nations and address issues of reconciliation. So we'll be amending the Declaration Act to ensure that that is clear. The second bright line is around private property. We had a recent decision in Cowichan where the court implicated private homeowners and business owners in a land claim decision. We are working hard on our stay application to put a pause on that decision. We expect to be able to file it soon once the orders are finalized from the original court decision. Protecting private property, protecting people's homes is non-negotiable.
I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News, and to get you some answers, I sat down with BC's Attorney General critic, the Conservative Party of BC MLA for Richmond-Queensborough, to discuss what his constituents are experiencing firsthand and what he thinks needs to happen to get property rights back on track. One of the things I'm seeing is almost this narrative being said in some mainstream media reports that it's no big deal. It's no big deal for the landowners. It's not what people think it is. What do you make of that?
Well, it is a big deal for my constituents that are affected. I'm hearing about the issue on a regular basis, and it came as a shock right away when they heard just like 3 months ago. They weren't told about any sort of litigation by the provincial government over the last 6 years. And now some of them, some of the constituents have Aboriginal title on their private property.
And what can you tell us about what you're hearing from the constituents in ways as they wait to find out what that means and the appeal process? Are there other ways they're being impacted?
Well, what we're hearing is I've had constituents directly tell me in the claim area, there's some people that have had problems selling their places. There's one constituent that specifically reached out and told me about the sales activity that, or lack of sales activity she had on her place. And I've heard about 3 different incidents of financing issues. So this is a real live issue. And I've also heard reports from realtors that there hasn't been any sales of properties in the area that's affected in the last few months since the Cowichan decision.
That concern you just raised about sales in real estate is something that's mirrored by the mayor of Kamloops, who I recently interviewed as well, regarding that land claim. Another thing that I wonder if you wanted to speak to is this whole, the NDP's like, this really wasn't our fault and we're doing our best now. And I see that on X, you've made some points about why, no, the NDP did play a role in this. Could you let them know about that?
Yes. So the Premier Eby, when he was the Attorney General, he put in a directive which essentially instructed the government lawyers not to argue Aboriginal title extinguishment when it came to private property rights. So that argument was not put forward by the provincial government, but that argument was put forward by the city of Richmond. And City of Richmond has been clear they want the provincial government to argue that at the Court of Appeal because it didn't. The City of Richmond feels that's a very significant argument to protect private property in the area. And so that wasn't done by the provincial government in the Supreme Court trial in BC. And then further, David Eby, when he was the Attorney General, he brought forward a piece of legislation that was the Interpretation Amendment Bill. And essentially that inserted Section 8.1 into the Interpretation Act. And with Section 8.1, what happened was in the Cowichan decision that was actually referenced, and that provision was used to essentially take away any sort of protections related to the Land Title Act for private property owners, saying that, the provisions, I believe sections 23 and 25 of the Land Title Act, which are there to state that you have clear title and it's a clear protection against others. It was reasoned in the decision that those particular sections did not apply because of Section 8.1 of the Interpretation Act, which was clearly brought forward by Premier Eby when he was the Attorney General. So that was another significant issue as well.
Now, you're the critic to the Attorney General, and I know that a former AG for British Columbia, Mike De Jong, has recently gone out to say and let people know also that the debate on that amendment to that act was shut down after 14 minutes, I believe it is. But you just started serving in 2024. What do you make of some of the concerns people have about the NDP, but also the fact that some of your colleagues all together unanimously, DRIPA, which in some ways plays a role here, they passed that legislation? What do you say to those concerns?
Well, that particular legislation, DRIPA, has created a lot of uncertainty. And we've seen in a different court decision that had to deal with the Mineral Tenure Act. Essentially, the mineral tenure system was struck down pursuant to that particular court case, the Court of Appeal decision that was rendered just about a month ago. And so DRIPA played a huge part in there. The courts actually interpreted DRIPA to say that it actually has enforcement capability. And so a mineral tenure system was shut down because the court felt that it did not comply with DRIPA. So now we have uncertainty that's created to the legal world, our legal system, our laws, our regulatory systems. And so because of this uncertainty, it has huge implications for our economy. And because there's so much uncertainty, we need to repeal DRIPA as soon as possible.
That's the BC Conservatives' position. Let's talk about what the BC NDP so far is saying they're willing to do. They've talked about making loans available for taxpayers in Richmond for homeowners. And David Eby recently said that he's going to work towards an amendment to let the courts know that when it comes to reconciliation, it's not the court's place, it's the government. What do you think of that? Is that enough, and why not?
Well, in terms of these solutions, they're like Band-Aid solutions. If you speak to constituents, there's some concerns about what he's saying. First of all, he should be addressing the root of the problem. He should be protecting private property to its fullest extent. And if this provincial government did protect private property to its fullest extent, maybe we wouldn't see the drastic consequences. They should be pushing for a constitutional amendment to protect private property rather than providing Band-Aid solutions. As for this particular solution that David Eby is proposing, I've heard a constituent say that somebody was inquiring about some of this backstopping, and they were essentially told that it was just in a preliminary stage. There isn't any concrete system yet. And so when the provincial government announced this, people thought, okay, that this is going to be available. And it doesn't seem to be even available. And there was also a tax expert that came out and said that, what is this? This doesn't make sense. The provincial government is saying $150 million, but the land in the area is worth more like $1.4 billion. And if somebody's going to try to like create a system to backstop in this area, the backstopping would be more like $1 billion. So all these solutions, they seem to be like band-aid solutions. They don't address the real problem, and it doesn't fully address the problem. And I'd also like to state that David Eby had, from the Premier's office, had a senior aide in my constituency knocking on doors. There's still ongoing litigation happening. This matter has not ended. There's, the appeals have been filed to the Court of Appeal. So this is still under litigation. But now, suddenly, they feel that it's okay. They don't have to follow any sort of instructions or any sort of other advice. They think that it's okay to give letters. So it doesn't really make sense why they never gave notice to my constituents like 6 years ago. And they're blaming the courts. They're blaming the courts for a problem that's being created a large extent by this provincial government. And they should have been proactive. And so there's huge concerns around that as well. When we're looking at governments, the provincial government had the biggest role. Why? Because these were provincial crown grants of fee simple to private property owners. So who comes into the discussion? It's the provincial government. It's the provincial government responsibility to inform and make sure everybody understands their rights around fee simple property, because it's provincial jurisdiction. And this provincial government clearly failed at informing people, keeping them informed. And in order to protect the system here in British Columbia, there has to be leadership from the provincial government, and they've really failed at that leadership.
One thing that Premier David Eby is saying, of course, he's getting a lot of backlash over their role in this, and he's saying that the NDP is still the party for the job. They're still the party to protect private property rights. And the reason he gave is that he's claiming that the BC Conservatives, well, they're just going to wipe out any sort of negotiations and discussions with First Nations. So you can't go with them. You must continue with the NDP on this. What's your thoughts on that?
I would say if you go to the general public, people own homes. People have invested. It's often said that a person's home is their castle. And now we have so much uncertainty. There was a Wall Street Journal that talked about property ownership, investment in this province. And the world is taking note. And the world is taking note for a reason. There is, this is not fear-mongering. This is real life stuff that's happening. People have had problems with financing. People have had problems with sales. And there's a reason why Premier Eby had an aide after the fact knocking on doors with a letter and saying that they wanted to hear what consequences they were having as a result of the court decision, the Cowichan court decision. And they wouldn't be doing that if they felt that there were no consequences, right? So what this provincial government is saying, it doesn't make any sense.
In closing, what's your advice to your constituents, other British Columbians who are concerned about this and feel powerless?
I think it's very important for all those that are affected to speak up and come forward and talk to me as the local MLA, and also let the provincial government know how they feel. And obviously, hopefully with more public pressure, there could be more protections for private property. So I feel that's very important to do.
At Rebel News, we've been bringing you the other side of the story on many things, including reconciliation overreach and how it's been impacting property rights and beyond. If you want to not just learn about this issue, but find a way to take action against it, go to our special website called nlandgrabs.com and sign and share our petition there today.